you think filmmakers want their viewers to feel they're in a moral position, like a higher viewing ground when they're watching their documentary, or no? That's just something I'm projecting.
Some of them might. I mean, it depends upon the film. You know, I'm more interested in films that don't judge their characters or their subjects. But some of them might want you to be in this sort of taking a kind of moral authority. I mean, it just depends upon the movie. I don't know. It depends upon the subject matter, what they're doing. I'm sure, I mean, there are multiple examples. I mean, speaking of sort of moral authority, someone like Michael Moore takes a kind of moral authority in most of his movies and wants his audience to align with him in that authority. But I don't know. It depends upon what they're doing.
Right. If we look at Grey Gardens, I don't think that was really put out there. It was more just
the Maisels. Yeah, the Maisels are. That's one of the same guys who made The Salesman. I think that's one of the reasons that they're so celebrated is that their ability to get into these very intimate, personal places and experiences, and we get to see these things that maybe we shouldn't be able to see, but we get to see these things, and we see them without judgment. We see them without those. They don't condescend. They don't condescend to the Bible salesmen that are working in Florida. They don't condescend to those women in Grey Gardens. They're trying to give us some kind of portrait of humanity. That's what makes them so good. And so interesting. But I also don't. For me to take an authority to say what filmmakers should or shouldn't do, I don't think is right either. You know, I think you can make an interesting film, any number of ways, and so there might be a way for someone. There are ways for people to do that. You know, I like Roger and Me, and the Michael Moore film, and he's standing above his subjects for the most part, you know. There's lots of ways to do interesting stuff.
I jokingly said that I'm bringing up old examples of films.
It's okay.
Do you think documentary filmmaking has changed, especially with reality TV and especially with the culture of being so sped up?
Yeah, I mean, in that way, all in narrative filmmaking and documentary filmmaking have changed. They're both much faster than they once were. And I mean, also in the same way, they're much more feasible for anybody, right? Anybody you can shoot stuff very cheaply, right? And that makes a lot of sense. It helps a lot when you're making a documentary film. Now, when you're rolling that camera, you don't have to worry about all the film that's burning through, right? With each one of those, each minute costs you so many $100s of film stock and development. Now you don't have to worry about it. You just pop the card in and just keep going. So it's changed that way, and that allows you to shoot more. So maybe it's harder to edit and all that sort of stuff. Has it gotten fast? I mean, the culture's gotten faster. Like the culture is just faster. And so in the way we consume things is faster. And, like the idea that the Maisels had no idea when they made Salesman in 1960 that somebody could watch it on their phone, right? That was not even, they had just gotten these cameras now that they could take out of the studio and start following people around in these kind of handheld devices. That wasn't feasible 10 years before. Yeah, of course it's changed. And of course the documentary has changed because of that. Is it better or worse? I don't know. I don't like to make those moral judgments. I was talking about this with somebody else. Oh, when I was doing color here the other day. We were talking, and like my students now, they're used to, they shoot stuff, they edit it, and they put it up on YouTube, and it all happens in like a day. They grab their phone, they go out and shoot something. They don't really plan it out. They just see what they're doing. And so one of the things that I'm doing is sort of training them. I'm trying to break down that process. So now that they're planning more, like that they fully form an idea. They write a script, in other words, and they plan it out in pre-production. They take their time with it. They shoot over multiple days, full days of shooting, all that sort of stuff. But there's nothing wrong with the way they were doing it for their YouTube, videos, right? There's that process, like that's a really important part of their learning. They're learning how to shoot stuff. They're learning how to edit stuff. They're learning what they're interested in. And it's really fast and it's consumed really fast and it's forgotten about, just as fast. But I don't want to pass judgment on that, whether it's good or bad, because I don't know. I don't think it's either. But it's just the way it is, right? And they're used to it. And so, I don't know. I mean, it's like documentary for a while there in the early aughts. It was the thing that it was. There was this kind of box office explosion with like Fahrenheit 9/11, a few other movies, March of the Penguins. But
Searching for Sugar Man.
Yeah, Searching for Sugar Man. That's right.
Yeah, it's great.
But now, man, it's hard. Man, it's hard for them to exist in the box office space. So I don't know what that means for their style. I'm trying to think, what's the last doc that I saw that wasn't like a true crime thing that was on, Netflix or whatever. I'm trying to think of the last feature film doc that I saw in the last 2-3 years. I know there's been some stuff, but I can't even think about it.
Well, HBO did The Inventor about the Theranos founder.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that.
So good.
I didn't see that. Nor if I wasn't there somebody wrote a book about it, right? Too, didn't they? Or no?
Maybe that I don't know, but it seems
it's Elizabeth Holmes, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. So I mean, it seems like some of that is coming back more into the mainstream, into the art house cinema. Mm-hmm. But you're right in terms of just the main, I won't mention the name of the theaters, but yeah, these mainstream theaters that don't show sort of art house cinema, I don't see a lot.
Yeah, well, it's just so, I mean, documentary, anything, it's so hard to get people to see your movie. It is so hard because there is so much stuff, I went to see The Souvenir yesterday, which I loved. It's such a good movie. It's so well crafted and well made. The acting is unbelievable. And then I stupidly looked up like box office stuff, which I never do. But I was just curious because here's this movie. She's a British filmmaker. Tilda Swinton's in it, but she's not the lead. It's her daughter who's the lead, who's not known at all. And the guy who's playing her boyfriend, he's a great actor, but he's not known in the States, And here A24 has, and they've spent a decent chunk of money promoting the movie. And so I was like, okay, well, let me see. I wonder if they're doing, it's not doing well at all. It's less than $1 million in box office. And I imagine they've spent, that's at least a $3 million movie. It might be a $5 to $7 million movie. And they've spent that much or more on marketing, I'd have to think. And how they're going to make that money back. So and this is not a criticism. I'm glad that they put that movie out. I want that movie to be in the world. I want it to have find its audience and all that sort of stuff. Right. But you go, oh my God, they're going to lose a ton of money on this movie. And that's bad for the cult. That's bad for the film world. It's bad because A24 is putting out interesting stuff.
Amazing stuff.
And so I want them to do well. And so and especially with that kind of movie, and sorry if I'm just going to ruin. So I want them to do well. Mm-hmm. So, it's not just documentary film, it's narrative film. It's, as I saw the depressing thing about Paul Schrader's last film, First Reformed, that's a movie that was made for, I think, around $3 million, and A24 bought it for $500,000. So there's all this, that creates downward pressure when you're trying to make a movie, We have a budget for $3 million. Well, Paul Schrader's movie, Oscar-nominated movie, was a master of the American cinema. It's a great lead actor who's known. Mm-hmm. Cost $3 million, and they only sold it for $500,000. So you need to make your movie for $500,000. And if it doesn't have, and you're not Paul Schrader, and you don't have Ethan Hawke, you have a known actor, but a lesser known actor. So actually, you need to make it for $250,000. And so there's all this downward pressure on the people producing movies because the audiences. Now I imagine they've made their money back at this point. Once it got the Oscar nominations and all that sort of stuff, I'm sure they've made the rest of the budget back. But it's a really, really difficult time to try to make anything that's not $30 million or more or less than $100,000. Anything from $100,000 to $29 million is really, really hard to get made because it's very hard for the people who are going to fund it to see how they're going to get their money back. And that's no different than in documentary film. But it is easier to make a documentary film for less than $100,000 than it is a narrative film.